Lockout was a defeat. A lot of people don't realise that, but it was a total defeat. The union was severely weakened. The whole trade union movement in Dublin was severely weakened. It was different from any other event in the decade of centenaries because it was a class war, and the links really were between workers in Britain and workers in Dublin. And on the other side you had the employers, Catholic and Protestant, nationalist and unionist in the city, united as well on class lines. So it was very different from all the other conflicts. We're usually in Ireland, as you know, about land, about religious affiliation, around allegiance and so on. So that is what made it different. Ironically enough, the intervention of British TUC actually exacerbated relations between Irish trade unionists, particularly Dublin trade unionists, and British trade unionists. So it actually drove a wedge between the two groups, and it acted as an impetus towards a separate trade union movement here. The movement also radicalised a lot of young nationalists, people like Padraig Yeates, Thomas MacDonagh, Eamon Cant. In fact, every single signatory of the 1916 proclamation publicly supported the strikers in 1913. So that was one of the immediate consequences. In the longer term, ironically enough, what saved the Dublin trade union movement was the First World War. Because with the First World War, you had the British government introducing legislation to prevent industrial disputes, and that involved arbitration. So suddenly, from being almost eliminated from the Dublin scene, unions could come back through the back door of government arbitration. And by the end of the First World War, trade unions in Dublin had doubled in size, and similar to what happened in Britain. So ironically enough, the British state almost saved the Irish trade union movement, although it didn't get any thanks for it. Larkin underwent, we think, a bit of a breakdown. He went to America in October 1914 on a fundraising mission, and that was the intention. It was also intended to give him a bit of a holiday. Once he got to America, he seemed to get his second breath and became heavily involved in radical politics in America, eventually ending up being convicted, I think, 5 to 10 years for sedition in New York in Sing Sing prison. But he did attempt to get back to Ireland on a number of occasions and couldn't because of the war. The British government basically told the Americans not to let him back because they knew he would cause trouble. The rest of his life was largely an anticlimax. He eventually was released. He was pardoned by Governor Al Smith in 1923. He arrived back in Ireland on the day the Republican forces declared a ceasefire in the Civil War. So he missed the entire decade almost. He went on to fall out again with his friends in the trade union movement, left the Transport Union, formed another union, the Workers' Union of Ireland. He's the only man in Irish Labour history who formed two breakaway unions. One became the biggest union in the country, the other became the second biggest, and they both combined, came back together again in 1990 as SIPTU, which is now the biggest union in Ireland again. So that's his fundamental legacy to the labour movement.